There's something about you that an avoidant person can never fully explain away. They often develop a habit of downplaying anyone who starts to care about them deeply. They convince themselves that a person is too clingy, too emotional, too demanding, or simply not worth the trouble. That is how they guard their distance. That is how they turn emotional detachment into something that feels justified. But when it comes to you, that approach does not hold up as easily. They pick up on things in you that their usual defenses cannot quite explain away. They sense your worth. They feel the impact you have on them. Somewhere underneath all the excuses, they understand that you are not like the others who entered their life, stuck around for a while, and eventually faded out without leaving much of a trace. And that understanding creates a struggle they cannot easily walk away from. Because if you truly mean something to them, then they must face a far scarier truth. You matter. What you think matters. Your disappointment matters. Your absence matters. And above all, your power to walk away matters. For someone who has built their entire emotional life around staying in control, that truth can feel dangerous. An avoidant person can care about you deeply while at the same time growing afraid of just how much they care. They can feel pulled toward you while another part of them scrambles to find an excuse to pull back. That inner conflict can influence almost everything they do around you. Welcome to Avoidant, where we dig into the hidden emotional patterns behind avoidance, attachment, distance, and connection. You stir up feelings they have spent years training themselves to bury. An avoidant person often becomes an expert at shutting down emotions before those feelings grow too big to handle. Rather than sitting with vulnerability, they pull away. Rather than getting closer, they look for reasons to step back. Rather than admitting someone means something to them, they might start zeroing in on that person's flaws instead. With most people, this pattern tends to work well enough. Someone shows interest, and the avoidant quickly decides that person is too much. Someone wants to get closer, and they get labeled needy. Someone shares strong feelings, and suddenly the avoidant has a ready-made reason why it will never work out. These judgments build emotional walls. But then someone like you shows up, and all at once their usual excuses start falling apart. Around you, they feel things that will not fit neatly into the boxes they normally rely on. They might genuinely love being around you. They might laugh more easily. They might catch themselves looking forward to talks they would usually dodge. They might grow curious about what you think. Remember tiny details you mentioned, or feel strangely at ease letting their guard slip. There can be moments where they simply forget to protect themselves. And those moments can matter enormously because they reveal something the avoidant has worked so hard not to face. Their walls are not nearly as solid as they thought. You get through to places inside them that almost no one else ever reaches. That is part of what sets you apart. You are not special only because of what you offer them. You are special because of what your presence stirs up inside them. And stirring those things up also uncovers weaknesses they have worked so hard to keep buried. They might love how they feel when they are with you, while at the same time dreading what those feelings might eventually cost them. Because now you hold something they rarely let another person have. You have the power to hurt them, not because you are out to hurt them, but because they have grown attached enough that your absence would actually mean something. That is a terrifying thought for someone who has spent much of their life making sure no one else gets that kind of power over them. They might suddenly realize that if you rejected them, it would sting. If you grew disappointed in them, it would matter. If you walked away, they could not just swap in someone else and act like nothing happened. There would be a gap left behind, and that possibility can trigger one of their deepest fears. An avoidant person has often learned that the surest way to dodge heartbreak is to never let themselves depend on anyone emotionally. Keep expectations low. Stay independent. Do not need too much. Always be ready to leave. But you throw that whole system off, You become important enough that losing you would truly hurt them. And once they realize that, they might start pulling away before anything has even gone wrong. They might withdraw, colder, talk less, act unsure of themselves, or blow small issues way out of proportion. Sometimes the goal is not to stop caring. Sometimes the goal is simply to lower the emotional risk that comes with caring. They might push you away because some part of them believes leaving first is safer than sitting around waiting to be left. And yet another part of them cannot fully let go because what they share with you is hard to find anywhere else. You may offer them something they quietly crave but struggle to admit they need: emotional safety without emotional control. You have your own sense of self. You can stand on your own 2 feet. You can respect their need for space without giving up on your own needs. You can offer warmth without demanding they lose themselves. You can stay close without being swallowed up by them. On the surface, you might be exactly the kind of relationship they say they want. And that is where things turn tragic, because even a healthy kind of closeness can wake up old fears. The issue is not always that the bond is unhealthy. Sometimes the bond is healthy enough to reveal just how uneasy they are with real intimacy. You might represent the kind of connection they have longed for a long time, but never truly believed was safe to have. A relationship where they could finally drop their guard, a person they could actually trust, a bond where they would not have to keep bracing for rejection. For a moment, they might even picture what it would feel like to stop running, and that thought can bring hope, but it can also bring fear. Letting in real intimacy means giving up some of the control that has kept them safe for years. It means letting someone else see the sides of them they normally hide away. It means trusting someone whose opinion actually carries weight. It means accepting that closeness always comes with some risk, and for an avoidant, that risk can feel massive. This is why noticing your worth does not automatically mean their behavior will shift. They can know you are special and still pull back. They can grasp how much you mean and still keep their distance. Or they can care about you deeply and still choose the familiar comfort of emotional distance instead. Awareness alone cannot undo years of conditioning. If they have learned that closeness means danger, their body may react to intimacy long before their mind can even make sense of what is going on. So they might look at you and see everything they stand to lose, and instead of leaning in, they might panic. That is the painful contradiction at the heart of it all. You can be the person they want to hold on to the most, and at the same time, the person they feel the strongest pull to push away. Because the closer you get, the more there is on the line, and the more there is on the line, the scarier vulnerability starts to feel. Eventually, an avoidant person may have to face a hard truth. Sometimes they did not lose someone because that person fell short. They lost them because their fear ran deeper than their ability to stay emotionally present. They saw something rare. They felt something real. They knew you mattered, and even so, they could not push past the part of themselves that believed distance was safer than love. The moment an avoidant person realizes just how much you truly mean to them, things can get even messier. You would think recognizing someone's worth would make a person want to hold on even tighter, but for someone with strong avoidant tendencies, the reverse can happen. The deeper the bond grows, the stronger their urge to protect themselves can become. This is where their actions can start to feel confusing. They might lean in when they miss you, then suddenly pull back the moment things feel too close. They might open up in one conversation and seem completely closed off in the next. They might show warmth, curiosity, and vulnerability only to retreat once they notice how much they have let show. It can feel like they keep flip-flopping, but beneath that back and forth, there is often a much bigger battle going on inside them. One part of them longs for connection. The other part is terrified of what connection actually demands. They are not really fighting against you. They are fighting against what closeness stirs up inside them. You might notice that they grow more uneasy once the relationship starts moving past the surface. Casual talk feels safe. Light, easy exchanges feel manageable. But once the conversation turns emotionally meaningful, something shifts. Suddenly, they need room. They go quiet. They stop reaching out as naturally as before. They might change the subject the moment feelings get too direct. They might tell themselves they are confused, but that the timing is off, or that they just need to focus on themselves. These reasons can sound logical, but sometimes they are masking something far more emotional. They feel overwhelmed by how much the connection means. Because with you, they cannot easily convince themselves that none of it matters. You have become someone whose presence pushes past their comfort zone, and that stirs up a dangerous question in their mind. What happens if I really let this person in? If they allow themselves to trust you, they might grow attached. If they grow attached, they might become vulnerable. If they become vulnerable, they might eventually get hurt. So their mind starts searching for a way out. This is one reason an avoidant person might suddenly fixate on flaws that never used to matter. A small disagreement becomes proof the relationship is doomed. A minor difference becomes grounds to doubt compatibility. Something that once felt endearing suddenly feels annoying. They might start overanalyzing everything because thinking feels safer than feeling. If they can turn an emotional experience into a mental puzzle, they get back a sense of control. And control is often the thing they are desperately clinging to. The irony is that you may not be asking them for anything unreasonable at all. You might simply want some consistency. You might want honesty. You might want to know where you stand. You might want the connection to feel a little more stable, but even those fair, ordinary wants can feel like a threat to someone who has learned to survive by keeping their emotional expectations low. They might read closeness as pressure even when you are not putting any pressure on them. They might experience your emotional needs as demands simply because being needed emotionally makes them uneasy. None of this makes it your job to fix their fear. In fact, it is important to see the opposite. Their inner conflict belongs to them alone. You can offer safety, patience, and understanding, but you cannot do their emotional work for them. You cannot love someone into becoming emotionally available if they refuse to face what keeps them shut down in the first place. And this is another reason being important to an avoidant can hurt so much. They might genuinely value everything about you while still acting in ways that make you wonder if they care at all. Their actions can contradict their feelings. They might miss you but refuse to reach out. They might think about you constantly but dodge real conversations. They might crave reassurance but struggle to ask for it. They might feel a pang of jealousy at the thought of losing you, yet still refuse to build the kind of security that would keep things steady. From the outside, this can look irrational. Inside them, though, two opposing needs may be pulling in different directions. The need for closeness says, come here. The need for protection says, get away. And the stronger their feelings grow, the louder both of those voices can become. This is why your presence can spark such an intense push and pull. You represent emotional closeness, but you also represent emotional risk. You are the person they want near them, yet your importance makes them afraid of depending on you. They might secretly wish you would always be available while acting like they do not need you at all. That contradiction can wear both people down. There is another layer that makes all of this even more tangled. Sometimes the avoidant does not fully understand their own behavior. They might genuinely believe they simply lost interest. They might tell themselves something about the relationship just felt off. They might convince themselves they are better off alone. But underneath those conscious excuses, unresolved fear can still be sitting there. This is why their behavior can shift once distance sets in. When you are close, their defenses switch on. When you are gone, the immediate weight of intimacy lifts. And once that emotional intensity fades, They might start to notice what your absence actually feels like. They replay old conversations. They revisit certain moments. They remember how at ease they felt around you. They notice the gap between ordinary attention and the kind of connection they had with you. Distance can, for a while, make them feel safe enough to admit feelings they could not handle while you were close. And that can spark another cycle. They miss you. They think about reaching out. They picture reconnecting. Then the fear creeps back in. They start wondering what could happen if they get close again. And the very person they wanted so badly during the distance suddenly feels frightening the moment closeness becomes real again. This is why chasing them rarely fixes the deeper issue. If you keep pursuing someone who keeps retreating, they might get temporary comfort without ever having to face why they keep running. And the cycle can repeat endlessly. You move toward them, they pull away, you grow anxious, they feel cornered, they retreat even further. You try harder, they shut down more. In the end, both people end up feeling misunderstood. But the real truth underneath it all is that the relationship is being steered by an unresolved fear of vulnerability. And when you stop feeding that cycle, something important can happen. The avoidant may finally have to face the consequences of their own distance, not because you are punishing them, not because you are playing games, because you are no longer holding the entire emotional connection together on your own. Your absence can force them to face a reality they were able to dodge while you stayed constantly within reach. They might start asking themselves questions they had pushed away before. Why did I pull back? Why does losing this person bother me this much? Why did I feel calmest when they were far away, yet miss them the moment they were actually gone? Why did I keep putting distance between myself and someone I knew was good for me? Those questions can mark the start of real self-awareness. But awareness is only the first step. Eventually, they have to choose whether they will keep guarding themselves against intimacy or finally learn to sit with the vulnerability that comes with it. Because mattering to someone is not enough on its own to build a healthy relationship. Feelings alone are not enough. Being recognized is not enough. Even love is not enough when fear keeps steering the behavior. The connection can be real and still stay unhealthy. The feelings can be genuine and still fail to bring any consistency. And a person can value you deeply while still being unable to give you what you actually need. Is one of the hardest truths to sit with. You can mean the world to someone and still not be getting the relationship you deserve. Your worth does not hinge on whether they are able to see it. And their fear does not become your job to carry just because you understand where it came from. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to stop trying to prove your value to someone. Just let them feel your presence when they are ready to meet you halfway, and let them feel your absence when they keep choosing distance instead. Because eventually, the avoidant has to face the question they have been dodging all along. Will I keep choosing emotional safety even if it costs me the person I actually care about? And that question can push them either deeper into avoidance, or if they are willing to put in the work toward real change, eventually there can come a point when the avoidant can no longer brush off the emotional impact you had on them. The distance that once felt like relief starts to feel different. At first, space gave them a sense of ease. They could finally breathe. They could tell themselves that pulling back was the right call. They could slip back into familiar territory where no one expected too much and nothing felt dangerously close. But time has a strange way of revealing what distraction used to hide. Once things get quieter, they might start to notice what your absence really feels like. They remember how conversations with you felt different somehow. They remember moments when they could just be themselves without constantly filtering what they said or felt. They remember what it was like to feel truly understood. And little by little, they might realize that the peace they thought they wanted was not really peace at all. Sometimes it was just the absence of emotional pressure. There is a big difference between the two. Being alone can feel safe because no one can let you down when you never let anyone close enough to matter. But that kind of safety comes with a price, and eventually the avoidant might begin to see that they traded real connection for emotional control. That realization can sting. They might look back on the relationship and understand things they could not see while they were still trapped in fear. They might realize you were never asking for too much. You were asking for presence. And you were not trying to control them. You were trying to build trust. You were not trying to strip away their independence. You were simply asking them to be emotionally present. And perhaps most painfully, to see that many of the problems they blamed on the relationship were actually rooted in their own discomfort with intimacy. That can bring on regret. Not always the dramatic kind that leads straight to some grand declaration. Sometimes it is much quieter than that. A thought that shows up late at night, a memory that surfaces out of nowhere. A moment with someone new where the connection just does not feel the same. A conversation where they suddenly notice how emotionally cut off they feel from everyone around them. A realization that the person they pushed away was not easy to replace at all. This is where your importance becomes impossible for them to keep ignoring. They might start comparing what they had with you to what they are experiencing now elsewhere. And that comparison can reveal what avoidance had been hiding all along. Maybe the connection ran deep. Maybe there was real emotional safety underneath all that fear. Maybe you understood them in a way they rarely let themselves be understood. Maybe they simply felt more alive when they were around you. And now they have to sit with the consequences of walking away. But here is what matters. Their realization does not automatically mean they will come back. And if they do come back, that does not automatically mean they have actually changed. An avoidant person can miss someone deeply and still fall into the exact same pattern. They can regret losing you and still be scared to rebuild what was there. They can reach out simply because they miss the emotional comfort you gave them without yet having the emotional maturity it takes to sustain something healthy. That distinction really matters, because the goal should never be just to make them miss you. The real goal is building a relationship where both people can show up consistently, speak honestly, respect each other's boundaries, and handle emotional closeness without constantly bolting from it. If they genuinely want another chance, their actions need to show it, not just their words, not just nostalgia, not just a heartfelt message after weeks of going quiet. Real change looks different from that. It means owning the distance they created. It means recognizing how their behavior affected you. It means learning to talk things through instead of vanishing whenever emotions get uncomfortable. It means understanding that independence does not require shutting people out. It means accepting that intimacy is not the same thing as losing yourself. And maybe most importantly, it means being willing to stay present even when every instinct is telling them to run. That is where genuine growth starts, because the avoidant's real challenge is not figuring out whether they love you. They probably already know that much. But their deeper challenge is learning whether they can actually tolerate being loved. Those are two very different things. It is entirely possible to love someone and still feel unsettled by their closeness. It is possible to want someone and still push them away. It is possible to recognize someone's worth and still act like they mean nothing. But a healthy relationship needs more than just feelings on the inside. It needs emotional availability. It needs consistency. It needs courage. And this is where you have to protect your own sense of reality. Do not spend your life trying to decode every silence. Do not build your whole understanding of the relationship around what they might secretly be feeling. Do not talk yourself into believing their hidden feelings make up for behavior that keeps hurting you. You can accept that someone might care about you while also accepting that they may not currently be capable of giving you a healthy relationship. Both can be true at once. And understanding that can completely change how you view the whole situation. You no longer have to go hunting for proof that you mattered. You no longer have to compete with their defenses. You no longer have to keep proving why the connection deserves another shot. Your worth does not grow just because someone finally wakes up to it. Your value was already there long before they recognized it. If they eventually find the courage to face their fears, that is their journey to walk. If they choose to keep their distance, that is their choice too. Your job is to stay grounded in what is real, instead of getting stuck waiting on what might happen someday. Because sometimes the biggest turning point in a relationship with an avoidant person happens the moment you stop trying to rescue it. You stop first conversations, you stop chasing explanations, you stop carrying the emotional weight for two people at once, and you start living your own life fully again. That shift can change everything. For the first time, the avoidant might actually feel the natural consequences of emotional distance without anyone rushing in to close the gap for them. They might realize your patience was never guaranteed. Your availability was never permanent. Your love was not some endless resource they could tap into whenever they finally felt ready. And that realization can push them toward a real decision. Stay hidden behind the same old walls, or finally start tearing them down. If they choose to grow, the relationship might have a real chance to become something completely different. Not an endless loop of chasing and pulling away, not constant guessing games, not emotional confusion dressed up as chemistry, but a connection where getting close does not mean losing your freedom. Independence does not mean disappearing on someone, and if they do not choose to grow, there is still an important truth you get to hold on to. You were not too much just because they could not handle closeness. You were not unworthy just because they pulled away. You did not fail just because they could not push past their own fear. Sometimes a person can come across something truly meaningful and still not have the capacity to hold on to it. That does not make the connection meaningless. It just means that feeling something and being able to handle it are not always the same thing. The avoidant may eventually come to understand that the person they saw as special was never actually the threat. The real threat was the vulnerability that came with letting someone special matter to them. And maybe that is the lesson hiding underneath this whole experience. Love does not become safe just because we try to control it. Connection does not become secure just because we avoid needing anyone. And vulnerability does not automatically end in disaster. Sometimes the biggest risk is refusing to let yourself experience something real, simply because you are afraid of how it might feel to lose it. So if they ever reach that realization, they will be left with a choice. Keep running from what they feel, or finally become strong enough to stay present with it. And if they do choose to come back, let their actions show you whether they have truly learned the lesson, because you deserve more than being loved in secret. You deserve a connection that can exist out in the open consistently without leaving you questioning your place in someone's life. That is the real difference between being someone an avoidant simply cannot forget and being someone they are genuinely ready to build a life with. And sometimes the most meaningful change begins the moment both people stop asking, how deeply do we feel this? And finally start asking, are we willing to build something healthy out of what we feel?